But let's talk about this draft, right? So because you don't do a whole lot in free agency, guess what you got to do? You got to lean on your draft class because that's really the Regal tool they use to bring in talent. And we look at this draft class. You have Tyler Guyton in round 1, which, by the way, you traded down with Detroit. You got the extra third-round pick, which turned into Cooper Beebe. But in round 2, you got Marshawn Kneeland. Cooper Beebe, of course, that first third-round pick. Maris Leofau, that other. You didn't have a fourth-round pick because that's what you used to go get Trey Lance. And I'm going to just put some salt in the wound. The pick that was after Trey Lance was Bucky Irving, one of the running backs that I was looking at in this draft class, but I'll leave that be. Kalen Carson in round 5, Ryan Flournoy in round 6, and then you had 2 seventh-round picks for Nathan Thomas and Justin Rogers. Now, again, it is 1 year after we've seen this draft class be there, and if we're being truthful, there's a lot of work to be done. For me, I think Tyler Guyton, you might have something. And the thing is it really felt like they were playing him out of position when we talked about it behind the scenes. And even I said it on my channel. I felt like you're playing a dude at right tackle, or you're playing a guy that plays right tackle, and you're moving him over to left tackle, having to have him learn a whole new position. And that didn't help. But he started playing better as the season went on. But just because I say he was playing better doesn't mean that he was like an all-pro level of playing that position. He really felt like you're getting the bare minimum of what you need out of a guy like him. But looking at the rest of this draft class, if it's not for Cooper Beebe, honestly, and a little bit of Maris Leofau at the end, so far nothing crazy, And I apologize to those players because they're still young. And I've always felt that it's not their fault they're being thrusted into these positions, because if you did do well in free agency, you're not forcing these guys to be your premier guys. Like a Marshawn Kneeland, like when you have young guys on the defensive line, they take a bit to develop. We know that. Unless they're like a superstar. But I digress. I really think just looking at face value, if you were to tell me space, what would you grade this draft class? Right now, to me, it's like a C plus right now, even teetering on a C. And the reason why it's there is because you at least got a starting center who's really good. You might have something at Maris Leofau, but Kalen Carson, he was not good. He was not good at all. And again, when we talk about guys in day 3, right? I understand these are day 3 guys. We're talking about backups and stuff like that. But when you were putting these guys into positions, Carson started a couple games for you, and he was not good. And then you let go of Justin Thomas, which, by the way, you let go of him because you had him on your practice squad. I think he went to Cincinnati, and then he came back. What are we doing? And so I'll stop because I could go on. But tell me, how did you feel about this draft class, honestly, when we took it? And then where we're at right now?
I'm a little higher on it than you are, just because, if you can come out of year 1 of a draft class and say, hey, we feel really, really good about one player, and then there's some guys where you look at and say, hey, there's potential. I think that's going to change maybe some people's perception about it. Not every draft class is going to be like the 2022 draft class where you get instant impact pretty much immediately from a lot of these guys. It's not like that every year. I know there's somebody in the chat talking about Tyler Guyton. I actually feel really good about Tyler Guyton going into the future because this is what I expected. I didn't expect a perfect season from Tyler Guyton. I expected there to be some ups and some downs. I don't think he had any games where, from a blocking perspective, he was egregiously bad, where you're going to see that from some rookie lineman. And that gave me hope. Now, he does commit a lot of penalties. That's something that he's going to need to clean up on. I'd like to see them get a new offensive line coach in here. I want to see him get a little bit stronger. But overall, the traits are there. I think that there was improvement in his game over the course of the season. I think he needs to mature a little bit. That's just some things that's being talked about over there with Tyler Guyton. But overall, I feel like he's going to be a really, really good player in this league. And I know it might not look like that after year one, but I think that this was to be expected. You know, he was a raw prospect coming out of college, but when you look at the traits, it's just you don't see that in offensive linemen that often, where they're 6'7", 6'8", arm length, footwork that he has, as athletic as he is. So, you know, I want to give that a little more time. But, you know, the rest of the draft class, Marshawn Nealon, he looks like he's just going to be a good player, which is fine. But I have a problem with drafting a C+ pass rusher and an A- run defender in the second round. If you draft an edge in the second round, they should be able to rush the passer. That's where it's like, hey, Marshawn Nealon was like a 4th-round pick. I feel really good about that, but he was a 2nd-round pick. So that's perspective that needs to be added to it. Cooper Beebe, I feel great about him. Maris Leofau obviously showed some really good things at the end of the season. I feel really good about him. Kalen Carson, just too soon for him. Not willing to write him off yet. It's too soon for him. I mean, he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready year one, which is fine. But, you know, we'll see with him. But, you know, I do have a lot of hope for this draft class. I feel a lot better about this draft class at this time this year than I felt about last year's draft class at this time last year, because I just didn't see anything in Mozzie Smith, Luke Schoonmaker, or, you know, obviously Overshown played really well for you. But, you know, who was the 4th-round pick? Valemi Fiocco? Yeah, I mean, where I feel about the 2024 draft class, I feel a lot better than the 2023 draft class.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you there. I think that, again, these are young guys. It's after 1 year. Usually I start having like full-on opinions about these guys after their second year, because some of these guys are on 4-year contracts and you need to see growth. And this goes back to the point of, this is when we really want to look at it. At the cornerback position, you let Stephon Gilmore go to the Vikings, which, you know, I got to go back and watch his tape. He had a decent season over there, not, of course, on the same level as his DPOY years when he was with the Patriots and, you know, such. But you really missed his presence, because when you had Diggs go down or you had Bland that was hurt, if you had Stephon Gilmore, you would have been able to hold down the position. Then you're kind of just like, we saw it, like you were filtering through dudes that were just not it, right? You have practice squad dudes running out there, and really Jordan Lewis playing at the level he was playing at saved you a bit. But I really wish you had someone else in the room too. And now you're going to have to pay him this offseason. And we'll talk about that at a later episode when we get to like a full-on, like, who do we bring back and stuff like that. But yeah, I completely agree. I think that with Guyton, there was things to like out of college. He's a very young dude. He's going to take some time. And that happens. Like, I think that is where I feel about him, is that you played him at a completely different position. He's still learning that. But there are things I didn't like this year, right? Of course, we, you know, like the holdings, and of course, him getting just abused in pass rush situations. But that's where I think that the Cowboys didn't have the foresight to think, okay, maybe, just maybe, this is going to take more than a year, which I think the way I look at it is this would have been like if Tyler Smith didn't pan out the way that he has panned out. And I think that the Cowboys have done well drafting first-round linemen, but this is going to take a bit longer than we expect. So with that, I don't really have much more on this particular draft class other than, you know, I think that, you know, it's just going to take some time, you know, and unfortunately these guys were put in positions they shouldn't have been in, because if your team did something in free agency, we wouldn't have to worry about complaining about Kalen Carson, coming in and, you know, being that guy day one where, like, we're going to start him and then, like, he looks okay and then, like, he just falls off a cliff because, you know, he's a rookie. But either way, I think now we get into the meat and potatoes of this particular Oh, sure, go ahead.
Draft class.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Tyler Guyton this year, just the PFF numbers, allowed 6 sacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
He allowed 4 in the first 4 weeks. From week 5 to week 18, didn't allow a single sack. 2 sacks. I'm sorry. From week
Mhm.
5 to week 18, only allowed 2 sacks. He allowed, let's see this, 3, 4, 5, 5 quarterback hits, and I think around like 8 pressures. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. And I'm sorry. That might be a little more. I doing this on the fly a little bit, but pass block grades from week 8 on 72, 74.9, 77.6, 50.9 against New York. I don't understand this. He didn't allow a single sack. He allowed 2 pressures, and he had a 0.3 pass block grade. I don't understand that, but
Yeah, I don't get how they grade that because it's like that's why I don't utilize Pro Football Focus a whole lot because it's like, how are
it's a
you coming
tool.
into this grade?
Yeah, it's a
It's a
tool. But
tool.
then
Yeah.
So the next 4 weeks, 81.2, 64.7, 79.8, 55.2 against Washington. So he graded out at a 60.2 as a pass block grade. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's pretty decent for year 1 for Tyler
Oh
Guyton.
yeah, for sure. Like I'm not, and I think I was alluding to that is like I felt like early on he was struggling, but as he played more, which with these young guys, especially with a guy like him, you need to give him reps. And as he got more reps, he started getting more comfortable at the position, and now he needs to go into year 2, hopefully sustaining the play that he had from last year. Now he's going to have a full-on off season to grow into. If they decide to keep him at left tackle, or if they're like, we're going to move on from Terrence Steele, we'll move him over to right tackle. They have options. But one thing I will say is that when it comes to these young players, like we talked about it with Tyler Smith, well, I did, in terms of like when you have these young dudes, you got to play like whatever position they're at, just stick them there. You can't be playing musical chairs with them, and the Cowboys love to do that, and it annoys the hell out of me. But I am impressed with what, for what we were looking with Tyler Guyton. If you felt like, hey, this guy could be a solid tackle, I don't think he's going to be crazy. He kind of was turning into that solid tackle that you would want towards the end. But he does have to grow more, and we'll see that,
Agree,
hopefully.
100%.
So yes.